It is now my pleasure to introduce our guests for today's keynote and fireside chat. Our keynote speaker is Shaun Usmar, Chief Executive Officer of Vale Base Metals. Since joining the company in October 2024, Shaun has been leading a period of growth and transformation focused on strengthening operations and unlocking the full value of the business. He brings more than 30 years of global mining leadership experience across operational, financial, and executive roles at companies including Barrick, Xstrata, BHP, and Triple Flag Precious Metals, which he founded and led for 8 years. He is especially well placed for today's conversation because he is at the center of the story of how critical minerals will shape economic strength, industrial capacity, and global competitiveness. There is also a very human side to Shaun's story. Alongside his business leadership, he has served for many years with Make-A-Wish Canada and currently serves as National Board Chair, which speaks to a broader sense of purpose behind his work. Following his keynote, Shaun will be joined by Candice Lang, President and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Candice leads Canada's largest business network and brings leadership experience across mining, manufacturing, agriculture, education, and healthcare, along with a strong voice on competitiveness and Canada's global economic position. Together, they bring the industry and national business lens to one of the most important economic and sovereignty conversations Canada is having right now. Shaun, welcome to our stage.
Jennifer, thank you, and thank you all for being here today. It's a privilege to spend time with you and to talk about something that truly is critical, and I think we're seeing in real time the significance of it for our way of life. I think in my 35 years in this sector, I think of this as perhaps the most consequential moment I can think of in my career, where this is coming into stark focus. And having seen a brave and famous Canadian go around the moon recently, I was reminded of a quote from Jim Lovell, which I think captures the moment, the commander of Apollo 13. He said, "There are people who make things happen, there are people who watch things happen, and there are people who wonder what happened." And I put it to you that this is our moment to make things happen. It is a moment of ambition. It is a moment, though, where we'll either look back in years to come and wonder what happened, or indeed we will seize this opportunity. And in some ways, and what I tend to share with you today, is just how we see the sector, but importantly to share with you the opportunity that we've seen at Vale Base Metals to perhaps create another true Canadian global critical minerals champion at a time when it really matters. I was enjoying my life in their company I founded 10 years ago on Sunday, in fact. And I was approached with this opportunity to take what I see as a Canadian mining icon, with its roots going back over a century in the form of Inco, and to take a business that had underachieved, underperformed its potential, was losing money, and was suffering competitively with huge investment and oversupply coming out of China and Indonesia. And the opportunity, having invested in this sector, one of the hardest things is to find talent in ore bodies and the ability to be able to turn that around in a much shorter time frame than greenfields operations. And the idea I couldn't get out of my head is, wow, if you could take this platform, turn this around, and be able to actually create a true global champion, wouldn't that be a cool thing to look back on one day? And I guess here's how we find ourselves. So I'm proud to share with you today how that journey is unfolding. It started for me in Base Metals back in October of 2024. It's been a whirlwind, and it also wasn't quite as chaotic as the world seems to have been when we first started. But it's become even more important, I think, in this time. So as way of scene setting, look, our business, I think it needs no introduction on the critical mineral side. But I think of this world in a slightly split way, and particularly when I think about Canada and the role that we have and the potential. We are associated primarily with copper, which everybody wants, as well as nickel, which has been less in vogue recently. And it's a different thing, but I think it underlines the reality and the challenges we face. On the copper side, demand has typically been roughly at the rate of GDP, 2.5% per annum, give or take, globally. But the challenge the sector has faced in a period where permitting has taken longer, the sector has struggled. I think only 1 in 5 projects have typically come in on time and on budget. And it's a well-trodden path. And Canada in particular has also struggled in this. Projects which would have taken 7, 8 years in years gone by now take 20 years to manifest. There's been a flight of capital from the sector. We've seen atrophy of talent. And I think we underappreciate as policymakers and people in the industry just how much catch-up we have to do with China, who've invested for the long term and done it globally and innovated. That's ultimately, as we think about what we're trying to do, we're trying to not compete amongst ourselves. We're going to the Olympics and we're going for gold. So the challenge for us, first and foremost, if you're going to unlock our potential, is that's the horizon and the viewpoint we have to have. So we can't have 1 in 5 projects coming online and on budget. We need capital. We need to make sure that we can tilt the odds in our favor. And going back to Jim Lovell, we're going to be measured on what we can do and ultimately what we achieve. The sector, even though the growth side has not been amazing, the demand side has defined it. And last year alone, there was about a 6% under delivery relative to expectation. That is a well-trodden path. On average, it's 5%. It is tough. And the focus for us is what do we do to change this dynamic? And I'll share with you how we've approached that. In the nickel side, it's different. The growth rate with battery electric vehicles and so many other things, aerospace, defense, is more like 6 or 6.5%. For a growth rate of demand. But the supply side is different. Indonesia has gone from nothing to 60% of global demand. The Western supply has largely fallen by the wayside. Australia is largely out of business on the nickel side, and they're just one example. And we were in danger of going the same way. So the challenge for us in Sudbury, in Voisey's Bay, Long Harbour, Manitoba, is we first have to be globally competitive in order to unlock the endowment and the potential that we have to be able to feed in, because there are no other Western supply sources, for example, in nickel in North America and elsewhere that are truly vertically integrated like we are. We do not produce an intermediate that gets shipped off to a part of the world that could become vulnerable to supply. We're seeing the vulnerability of supply shocks right now in energy, in helium, in sulfur, so many things that we've taken for granted unconsciously. We have the same thing. We produce a finished product. We control 60% of the aerospace and defense supply to the US, as we have for generations. We did 95% of the nickel for all allies in World War II from our mines in Sudbury. And so we've been a reliable partner. We currently provide the majority of our sales into Europe, for example, and we supply Asia out of our operations in Japan. We've been a tried and tested multi-generational supplier, and we are very proud to say we've got 4 generations, or the 4th generation of fathers and daughters, for example, working in Sudbury underground in our operations right now. We employ about 7,200 Canadians and directly. The average wage in Ontario, for example, is double the provincial average. These are good-paying jobs. And we supply and support thousands of suppliers and indeed others in the ecosystem in more remote northern communities. So I'll give you that context because going back to copper, S&P Global, and we were talking about it at our table, has done a study and has pointed out that the projections are by 2040, we're going to have a 50% increase in demand with artificial intelligence and all these other needs. And at the same time, there's about a 10 million ton per annum shortfall, and we don't know where it's going to come from. This is an opportunity. This is our opportunity, but it's going to come down to what we can do together between industry, policymakers, and others to reverse the trend. So let me share with you why I took on this role at Vale Base Metals and our report card to date. 2024, leading up to it, we consumed $2 billion in capital or cash that year, added to the balance sheet. We lost money in Canada. We hadn't hit guidance in over a decade in the business, that trend of overpromising and under-delivering that the sector struggled through, and had billions of capital overruns over years. It's tough building mines, particularly in places like Labrador, where we are in Voisey's Bay, remote, northern. These are tough environments. We had to change that trend. We did the biggest restructuring in the company of this history in a very short period of time. We had to reverse the trend and earn the right to capital and to be able to regain confidence of our owners and indeed the market. And that's exactly what we've done. And in a very short period of time, I'm very proud to say we've got a beautiful group of people. We have the endowments, we have the projects, but we cannot invest our way to prosperity and destroy confidence and capital. We have to be globally competitive. So if you fast forward, last year alone, we went from end of 2024, 1.3 billion of EBITDA, negative cash of $2 billion. We had about a 1.9 billion cash flow improvement on the year. 850 million of that were improvements in costs, in volumes, and productivities across our portfolio. The team responded incredibly. For the first time in our history, we were proud to be called one of Canada's top 100 employers. That was a reflection of dramatic change, knowing that we can do hard things, but that our people responded in this minute to the challenge. And this is exactly, I think, where we are as a nation. This is our moment. We achieved records in multiple parts of our business. We ramped up new operations. We put nearly $3 billion into Voisey's Bay in a new mine back in 2024. We ramped that up ahead of time. And in the first time in the 11-year history of Long Harbour, we achieved design capacity and we achieved record production in that facility. We did the same in our copper operations in Brazil, as well as in a mine that a new furnace we brought on in the form of Onça Puma, which came on slightly under budget and on time, bucking the trend. We beat guidance in both copper and nickel for the first time in history, and we doubled we substantially double-digit reductions in our operating costs across the portfolio. We ended the year from losing $2 billion to cash flow break even, and we're on track now to, at current pricing and in these environments, to make over $1 billion of free cash. And the Canadian business is on a sustainable trajectory now. We've seen in Sudbury, for example, where we're proud to host the minister recently, we were able to ramp up, because it's vertically integrated, the 5 or 6 mines there. We put 5 million tons through Clarabelle. That is the most we've had since 2016. That allows us to dilute our fixed costs, to be more competitive. We're going to go even further, and we're doing the same in Voisey's and Long Harbour. And having just put out our quarterlies, indeed again, we're on track now. We've had another strong quarter, our 6th consecutive. And if you look at spot pricing and certainly our guidance, our EBITDA, which was 1.4 billion not long ago, is closer to 5 billion at this stage, a business that's on the up. So I share that because, a large part of this was about a topic we were discussing prior to this, and I think it's a template for what we're trying to achieve here. We're not going to spend our way to prosperity. We need to excite people, rejuvenate them, help them understand how they can make a difference. For us, it was actually reconnecting our operations with the things that matter. I gave them all a book called Essentialism. I encourage you to read it. We were an organization majoring in minor things, too much complexity, too much process, too much policy. We focused back down on the things that truly matter, help people simplify their lives and be able to really focus on the things that will have the greatest impact on the bottom line, manage our risks effectively. And to that point, even with all the turmoil we've had as an organization, we've had some of the best safety that our business has experienced in the history of our business. These things are not at odds with each other. Part of that was just breaking down silos, a topic we spoke of just prior to this. We work better together when we actually understand each other and when we get rid of the best practices for the sake of it, but focus on how we can work together to understand each other's positions and actually understand how we can actually put ourselves in the position of our stakeholders and work better together with them. That has allowed us, particularly in our projects, we've taken out in a sector that has struggled. We've had a 30% capital reduction across the business. We found opportunities to accelerate, particularly our copper growth in Brazil, but also in Canada. That has seen returns of low to mid-teens. Our first 2 projects have now got returns in the order of 65 and 55%. You don't see these in the mining sector. And it's focused on simplification, empowering people on the ground, and not just going to brand names, but actually working and getting our people to understand how they can step up and be accountable. It's been a very inspiring thing to be a part of, and indeed a privilege. And I think is something that has so much further to do for us in the future. So for me, the template is simple. Start off and reverse that atrophy and that trend. You have to start delivering on your promises. That's why quarter on quarter, our teams are rallying and they're delivering on their production and cost improvements. Step 2, grow value. We've redesigned our life of business planning, our projects. We're here to grow value and manage risk, and we have to do it with our host communities, because at the end of the day, we serve at their pleasure. We are at their invitation, and we have to be good partners. And if we do this and the market understands it, then we hopefully earn a right to a lower cost of capital, access to capital, good partnership opportunities, and then the opportunity perhaps to list and maybe be a global champion. And that's the ambition. So I share that because, and one last point, just as a little bit of trivia, we are the largest Western nickel producer. We're looking to double our copper production to over 700,000 over the next decade. A lot of that located in Brazil, but very much a large part of that possibility in Canada with our endowment. Bizarrely, we view cobalt as a byproduct, but we are the fourth largest producer in the world. In Canada, we produce 70% of Canada's cobalt. We produce copper, PGMs, gold, silver. All these things increasingly significant. So just coming back to the role that we play, I think as a society and how as Canada, this is such an important moment for us to work together. And as was said previously, we're very proud of the partnership that I think we're able to achieve together in Thompson, a 65-year asset where it needs the focus and partnerships that I think are needed to help it achieve its potential. So thank you. I think it was amazing. Just looking at it from what can we do as a nation on the homegrown critical minerals champion. RBC has pointed out that I think we need about 1.8 trillion in the next decade to finance Canada's major projects, and about 200 billion of that is in metals and mining. We have funds from our banks, from the Maple 8, from our Canada Growth Fund and others, partnerships, public and private partnerships that come to bear. But importantly, I think the ability to continue to streamline, to take these initiatives we're seeing at a federal and provincial level and to enact them and to find ways to do what we did in this business, simplify, empower, and make these things happen so that when we look back a decade or so from now, that we can truly say that we've been able to make a generational difference. I think that is it. So we look at the Canada's Investment Summit coming up soon, the Major Projects Office with a clear signal that Canada is in business and building big again. I'm always at awe when I look at our forefathers and what they endured in order to create what we enjoy today. Ontario's One Project, One Process framework, really to streamline and expedite permitting. We have to do all of this, and we have to do more. I'm conscious of the time. I think, just very importantly, perhaps, because I know we're getting to Q&A. On exploration, very quickly, that's part of it. We have an endowment, and we have to make sure that we allocate it well, and we are continuing to explore and unlock that endowment and build properly. For us, that's been with the drill bit. It's the best return you can find on investment, and brownfields, I believe, is the best opportunity for critical minerals now. It doesn't mean we don't do greenfields, but your personal portfolios don't do long-dated speculative investments. We need those. We need that for infrastructure. We need these in order to secure future jobs, but we also need to invest in the immediate term. The best return opportunities, lowest risk, best reward are things like in Sudbury, where we're vertically integrated, we have existing know-how in ore bodies, and we need to work together to secure those jobs and indeed grow in the north. And I think we have a pivotal role to play, certainly at Vale Base Metals and our partners in the region. It's an untold story. It's the original Canadian critical mineral story, I believe, and I think there's so much more opportunity. On exploration there alone, we'll do 270,000 meters of exploration in Ontario and Voisey's Bay, just targeting further extensions to what we already have, despite the 100 years, and see if we can secure the next 100 years of operation there. And then, finally, I thought I'd leave you with is a quote from a Canadian poet, author, and songwriter, Leonard Cohen, as a call to action in an imperfect situation that perhaps captures the moment for our sector and I think for Canada. And it is, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget the perfect offering. There's a crack. A crack is everything. That's where the light gets in. The world is certainly cracking in many visible ways right now. And I see this as an incredible opportunity for Canada and our mining sector to once again build real global champions. We have a mineral endowment. We have the people, the bells that can still ring. And we need to forget perfection, simplify, enable our natural advantages, and focus on urgent, principled progress to make this a reality and to do it together. I'm really encouraged and heartened by the actions that have been taken by both federal and provincial entities, and we are playing our part at Vale Base Metals to transform our Canadian business into a true global champion. I'm excited by our progress. I'm grateful for our people and really proud of them and what they've achieved in this time. And I'm really excited as a Canadian for this moment. I do not want our kids to look back on this and say, well, what the hell did our parents do to let this slip by? This is our time, and we have to do it now. So thank you.